I will rejoice in the Lord always. Philippians 4:4. I call Haddonfield my little village. It takes a village to raise a child. I was in that village. My village consists of 4 streets: Douglas Avenue, East Park, Potter Street, and Ellis Street. Those are the only streets that I was in Haddonfield. I had blinders to everything else because that was my world. And the time that I was growing up, the main thing that I would do would go to school, do the best I can do in school, go to church, do what I have to do at church, and to do what I am told to do or whatever I am needed to do in the neighborhood or for my family. Family is very important to me. But also, too, family in my neighborhood is very important to me, too. You could be walking home, all of us in the neighborhood, walking home from school, and someone might have a little push someone or say something to someone that someone doesn't like. And by the time you hit the corner, somebody will call your mom's house and say, such and such is doing such and such. And then when you walk in the door, you get, well, why did you do this? That's that village that raises a child. Anyone on my street could say anything to us when we were growing up. We would obey them. It would be no talking back. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Because they are part of our village. So that's the outlook that I'm taking from Haddonfield. The first one I will have to say is that I was involved in a little drum corps called the Marionettes. And it was a lady on Ellis Street that she had these girls coming in with their batons, and we would march and do little steps and everything and go in parades. We've never been in a parade in Haddonfield, but we were always in the parade in Lawnside. The one thing that I really remember was that the costumes were made out of sheets. And, they were white sheets and they had that red rick-rack on them and everything. And you couldn't tell us that we were really selling our pom-poms on our boots. And, you couldn't tell us that we were really doing something big. But it was an activity she had for us at her house. That was one. The second one that I remember, and I remember this very, very well, is that on our street we used to have block parties. They used to close down the street. Everybody would come out with their tables, their chairs, their foods, their wares, and everything else. And we would just have a good old time on the street, just having fun and a good time. Other thing, too, that I remember that's very, very important to me is at the end of the street, Mount Olivet Baptist Church. That was it. Everything, mostly things that happened for me, happened at the church or through the church, or we went to the church for somebody or someone at the church or something like that. But those are the things that I remember in my village. I accepted Christ when I was at a very young age, at 8 years old. So Christ has always been in my life. There's nothing I can do. No one can say anything but him. I'm just here as a vessel to do what I need to do. My faith has taken me so many places. If you don't have faith in yourself and what you want to do in your life, there's nothing else you can do. You have to follow him, and he's there to guide you. So faith is very important to me. I was born at Cooper Hospital, and from Cooper Hospital, I went to my home on Douglas Avenue. I had been here all my life, except for when I went away to college for about 10 years. I wasn't here, and then I came back. So I'm a true Haddonfield girl. True to the bone, Haddonfield. Going to school, going to kindergarten. I remember going to kindergarten, and I didn't meet any other kids. I didn't know that many kids. I only knew the people in my village. So when I went to kindergarten, I met new people. We all stayed together. And at that time, you stay together until you're in high school. Very rarely doing it that new people would come into Haddonfield to go to school. Most of the people here lived in Haddonfield. So that we were a close-knit group, very close-knit group. When I was young, I think my future, I really wanted to be a teacher, and I wanted to own my own nursery school, and I wanted to teach. That was something that I said I wanted to do for the community, especially for people that are working and their children, they need child care. I was it's something to do to help them improve themselves by going out to work, but most people couldn't get child care. And if they were working in homes or they were working, in factories or whatever, and it's hard to get child care. But it's not as hard as it is then, because you would have your grandparents there, you would have the village there, people in your village there, as I call it, that would help you out. But I really wanted to open up a nursery school and run it. I remember the time that on Sunday, after going to church, me and my brother and my mother, we could ride our bicycles up Kings Highway, and nobody was up there but us. A time where that no stores were open, nothing was open. Oh, no, not on Sunday, not in Haddonfield. It wasn't open, nothing was open. And also there was no liquor. No liquor whatsoever in Haddonfield during that time. The only store that might have been open would be the 7-Eleven that was over there by Batesville. That one was open, and that was about it. But that time, during that time, we didn't have that. We didn't have stores open and stuff. The Cherry Hill Mall closed at 5 o'clock on Saturday. So if you didn't get what you needed from the mall on Saturday before 5, you're not going to get it because its stores were closed on Sunday. That is a big thing. Also, too, is the people in the township were older people. They were older people here. They were just raising their kids like us. It wasn't that many young people coming in to live in Haddonfield. Most of the people here, as you would say, the term of old money. It was a lot of old money. And there's generation after generation was coming here, but eventually, coming up to modern times now, most of them are their kids. They go to school, they go to college. They want to come back to Haddonfield and raise their families. Immediately after high school, I went to college. I went to West Virginia Wesleyan in Buchanan, West Virginia there. I did that, and then I went there, and it was an experience. I never saw a potbelly stove before. And when you're saying people sitting in the hardware store around the potbelly stove? Yes. They were sitting around the potbelly stove. They had, and I mean, it was beautiful scenery and everything else like that. The people were very, very nice and kind to us on campus, but when it snowed there, you might be snowed in for a month because of the snow, and then you would have to, go back. There was times when we'd go back on campus that we had to go to school on Saturday because we had to make up the time. But it was an enjoyable experience, something that I will always keep. After that, then I transferred to Rutgers up in New Brunswick, and I went to school there. I decided to go there because I was here at the school, and every time the counselors would say, this college is coming today, and this one's coming another day, whatever. If you're interested, come in. So this particular day, I heard the school was coming, and I said, well, let me go down there to the counselor's office and see what's going on. I went in there. And they said, sit down, have a seat, and I sat down. The man was telling about the school, about the programs that they had there, the programs that they had for early childhood education, and that's what I was going for. And he talked about it. And he says, there's a chance, if you are interested in it, fill out this form or whatever. Well, to make a long story short, I went home and I talked to my parents, and my parents said to me, you cannot apply to all these schools because they cost a lot to, do the application. So I said, but they came to the school and they were talking and all this. This was my choice. So I was only allowed to do 4 schools because, it was costly, And I said, well, they came, I'll take a chance. And I filled out the application, sent it in there. And the next thing I knew, I got a phone call, and they said that I was entered, that I was accepted at West Virginia Wesleyan. Comes graduation time, and you'll find out around graduation time, they want to know here at the school, when I was here, what college you're going to be going to. And they ask you to fill out a form saying what school you're going to go to. So I'm sitting there, and I'm filling out the form, and someone said to me, they said, oh, you're not going there, are you? I said, yes, I was accepted there. Well, what? And I'm like, yeah, I came here, I went to the counselor's office, well, did the counselor call you to go to that? I said, no, the counselor didn't call me to go to that day. I chose myself to go. Oh, I see. That was the first little hint to me. What am I supposed to do? I want to be a teacher. I went on my own. Counselors didn't call me to come down and see schools. They didn't call me at all. I did it on my own. I stumbled upon it on my own. And that's what happened. Well, there's only one person, and that's God. And after God is my family. And if I didn't have my family with me, a lot would not be there. And then we go to my village. My village, where that I can go on my street and I could go to anybody's house that's there and I would be welcomed. And that's what keeps me going. Because of the village of Douglas Avenue, East Park, Potter Street, and Ellis. Again, that is my village. Never give up and always believe in yourself. Because if you don't believe in yourself, no one's going to believe in you. Follow your gut. No matter what it is, you follow your gut. Because usually your gut is the best way to go. And then you want to hear yourself saying, I shoulda, coulda, woulda. You can say, I tried. And as long as you do your best, if you do your best and you get second prize, that's your best. You always do your best. The best to you is what you can do as being the best. It's not what others perceive you of being. It's you. So I get second prize. That's the best I can. I'm just as proud of it. I'm just as proud of it if I would have gotten first place. Because I believe in myself. And also, too, with that, learn to not beat yourself up so much. Because you know what? Sometimes we're our own worst enemies. Living in Haddonfield is an experience. It didn't come to me that when I went to college and I brought people home from college when I came. And we were driving down Kings Highway. And it happened that night as the night they were having the band playing. So they closed off the street. And everybody had their lawn chairs. You know what we do. We put our lawn chairs out there and we're singing the band's going to play. The person with me goes, oh my God, you live in Pond Valley. Pond Valley is a soap opera township. He says, they close a road down just to do a concert? Yes, we do. We do that. I said, and also we have parades too, you know? I said, and also on the 4th of July, they have races. You know, they have contests. I said, yeah, we do all this stuff. I never heard of it. Never heard of it. Only thing that they knew that Haddonfield was about was the swimming. Because we have some swimming champions here. That's what they knew at. Number one, they didn't even know blacks lived in Haddonfield. They didn't. Oh, I have been told more than once that I did not live in Haddonfield. I was told that I live in Lawnside or Camden. You don't live in Haddonfield. Yes, I do. I had one man say to me, okay, so where do you went to high school? Boom, eat your man just real fast. No, you didn't. You went to Haddon Heights. Again, no, I went to Haddonfield. It is a thing that I used to get upset about it, but I don't get upset about it. You know, now I'm being more mature or whatever. It is just that people don't know. And that's why this is great to be doing, because people will know more about this section of Haddonfield. That we did exist. We did have a village. We all were there. And we're still there. But the thing about it is that as a young child growing up, and you're hearing adults telling you where you live and where you don't live, you kind of step back to say, well, what's wrong with them? My father was born in Haddonfield on Potter Street, so he was here all along in that sense. His family came up, my grandparents came up from Raleigh on my father's side. My mother's side, they came up from Virginia because my grandfather was ill, and the best hospital was in Mount Holly, so they came up here from there. And so my father's been here all his life, and my mother has been here most of her adult life. So like I said, I'm real Haddonfield. Yeah. Sunday dinner. Well, let me just tweak it a little and say what was Sunday like in my house. Mm-hmm. Sunday morning breakfast. Everybody sat at the table at breakfast. Had to have breakfast before we went to Sunday school. We went to Sunday school and you went to church. Down the street at Mount Olivet, which I can walk from my house down the street to Mount Olivet. Breakfast Sunday was always, eggs and bacon and those little rolls. I remember those little like sweet rolls we would have with the icing on them. And only on Sunday, we would have them only on Sunday. And, I used to love to have those little rolls with the sweet on the top on a Sunday on that. And go to church, and when you come back from church, put no play clothes on. You have to be church for Sunday, that you stayed in your nice dresses, and you were a lady. No running up and down the street. I couldn't ride my bicycle. because it was Sunday and it was a day of rest. And our little girls and stuff, all the little kids in the yard out there on their bicycles. So I'm sitting on the step looking at them. They're riding their bikes and stuff. I couldn't because it was Sunday. But on the other hand, I learned a lot from that. There was a discipline that came into that. And that was that, when I wanted to run and play. It was just no activity thing. It's just like we could play little games like jacks, and that kind of stuff. But I couldn't do that on Sunday. Sunday dinner was always a vegetable, a starch, a meat, and then dessert. It's some kind of pie, some kind of cake, usually homemade, and we would have that. Now 7:00 was the time that I had to go to bed, and I remember the news would come on, and after the news would come on, and I would have to go to bed at 7:00, and all the little kids were out in the yard running around and running up in the street, and I'm sitting there saying, I have to go in my bedroom, and I have to go to bed. So that was going on. It's like, well, I couldn't do that, but on the other hand, I was ready for the next day because the next day was a school day. And you have to get up and go to school. So in a way, that's the discipline that comes into play in my life. Historical events, I remember when I was in elementary school, I remember when Kennedy died, President Kennedy died. And the teacher, we just had one of those drills where you had to sit underneath the table, just had one of those. And then she came in and she told us that the President of the United States died. And all of us, we were young, so I think I was like fourth, maybe, kind of young. We're like, oh, wow, that he died. Then when I got home, I found out again, my parents talked to me about it, about him dying and everything, as he was the president, and that he was, that he had, got shot. The other one would be when they walked on the moon. I remember sitting in front of the TV set, the black and white TV set, watching them walk on the moon. You couldn't tell me nothing. Couldn't tell me. You couldn't tell me. They were on the moon. That was just like, that was it for me. I was like, oh my God, we went to the moon, in that sense. But those things, and also, of course, I wouldn't have to say Dr. King. That was it. I was young, but I wasn't that young. He was there for us. And he's still there for us now. But I kind of related to it because he was building up and doing what he was going to do, and he was all in the church, and he was doing this and that, and all of a sudden, he's gone. I had a history teacher, Mr. Shanahan, and he was just a character in himself. He was just a nice man. And he'd always tell me, Linda, history, I'm going to do your work, this and that. And I was doing my work and stuff, and he would always talk to me about things and improving on this and improving on that. And I was like, okay, yeah, okay, that's cool. All right, Mr. Shanahan, all right, okay. But he always giving me that little push there to say, okay, now, Linda, you do this and you do that. The other person was Jack Shaw, theater teacher. He came in, when he first came in to the school, I was in the drama club. He came in, and I remember, he used to call me Armstead girl, and I would try, do the best I can and everything else like that. But he was such a person where that when we would get involved in shows and theaters and stuff, he was doing life lessons. But we didn't even know they were life lessons. You learn your lines, you do your blocking, you do this and you do that. And in a sense, he was just coming out of college. But he got hired here in Haddonfield. Well, right there, you knew he was good. He had to be, because Haddonfield doesn't get anybody here that's not close to the top or the top teaching. And so I said, he kept talking to me too. He talked to me too, but the talk was more so play-wise. learn your lines, do this, learn your blocking, get your costume straight, that kind of sense. Or you're trying out for this show, you're trying out for that show. But the thing about it is, you always don't have to make every show. Even though you're in the drama club, doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be in the show that year or whatever. Because it's not like that. They take it to show for what the talent for the show. That's what they use the talent for that show. And so I was in most of them. I mean, Midsummer Night's Dream, Rigadoon. We did this one-act play called Rats. I did that. And my senior year, I was president of the drama club. Oh my God. I played in the high school band. And the last thing I played was the cowbell. And I was in the percussion department. And it was a song of dun 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 dun, and that was me. Dun 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 dun. Boy, you couldn't tell me the whole thing. The measures was going and everything. And we had a parade, and we did the parade. And let me tell you something. We did the thing 4 times. You imagine seeing the cowboy going dun 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 dun, and they're going on with that and all that, going down King's Highway. I was like, oh my God, do we have to do this song again? So I did play. Yes, I did play the cowbell in that sense like that. I think I played it. I did do that. I did have the dep in the band. Yes, I was in the band. The organization that I work with is the National Drifters Incorporated. Drifters is what we do. We work with children. We work with the elderly. We have a big pushback for going to vote, getting people out to vote in that sense. Mostly for the disadvantaged out there and the underserved they work. Then I'm in the Continental Societies, and then we work with the underserved in South Jersey. So if every year we do a coat drive, and where that we go to a school, and we get a list for the children, and we get coats for them. These children don't have coats. They need the coats. We get the coats for them. We get hats. We have a little pizza party with them. And they're very, very thankful. I get so much out of that, doing that, because there are times in my life or whatever where you don't have and you want to have, but you have it. But you think what you have is the best thing in the world, but it really isn't. It's just, just a thing to have. These children, I have to tell you this for a story. One little boy, one of my people gave him a coat, and the coat had a lining in it. So the little boy, this is what they said, I wasn't there that day, the little boy took the lining out, and he says, I'm going to give this coat to my brother, and I'm going to keep this coat. He thought the lining was a coat. So he proceeded to give it to his brother. Well, right there, that was not going to be. My sisters, my sisters wasn't having that. They went straight to the store and got a coat for the brother, in that sense. But innocence of a child, the innocence of a child. He wanted to do that. Also, too, we also do a book drive. Also for Black History Month, we go out, we go to different schools, we read to the children. On Black authors, we read them for them to be exposed to Black authors. I've been in Lawnside. I went over to Lawnside a couple of times and read over to children to read books. You need to register to vote. It's easy, especially the 18-year-olds and youngers. You think it's not, but it is very, very important just to register. So we go out, we'll set a little table up, and then come on and vote. Come to vote so you can learn to vote so that you can change these things that's happening in here. You have a voice. You might be 18 or whatever, but you still have a voice in that sense in doing that. In the township, I do see changes. I do see some changes in the township coming along now. This is like a project like this. Wouldn't have happened 10 years ago. This wouldn't have happened. No, not to this extent. Not 10 years ago. No, it wouldn't. But a project like this now, it's the right time. See, things happen for a reason. And the reason is upon us. But the thing about it is that they have to, be more open. Haddonfield has changed since I was young. Like I said, old school money's gone. New school money's coming in. You know, you have the techies coming in, the IT people coming in. I mean, they're making big bucks, and they're young. They're like 25 years old, and they're making, a lot of money here, and they're coming into the town. You know, so the thing about it is that we have to be open, a little bit more open to receiving. If it wasn't for my life and the way I was raised up in Haddonfield, I wouldn't be who I am today. Just the experience, just my village has gotten me through a lot. And I would not change it. You always say, oh, you want to change your life. I can't. I can't say I want to change my life because this is the way God meant it to be. It is and what it is to be. You know, some people might look at me as being, the little girl that had to stay on the step all the time, the little girl who did this and this. Yes, but don't judge a book by its cover. Don't judge a person from what hearsay. You judge a person from the person that you meet. And if you don't care to come and meet, then don't say anything.
Always be proud of what you've overcome, and always be proud of all the battles you've won, and always be proud of all of your darkest days, the tears you held back when you walked away, and always be proud of your mom and your dad, and whatever affair that they once had. Always be proud of your very first kiss, and always be proud of every friend that you miss. Always be proud, and let your